Hi, I'm Shu Lin, a multidimensional coach devoted to helping you remember who you are and move forward with clarity, purpose, and inspired action. My work blends grounded coaching with intuition-based tools like Reiki, astrology, channeling, and Akashic healing. I hold a space of sacred neutrality where you can hear your soul clearly and take aligned, heart-led action. Inside this space, we explore your purpose, intuition, relationships, goals, and what's truly calling you forward. Today, I'm joined by Rich Matthies, and I'm so honored that he agreed to share a glimpse of his multidimensional journey and our work together with you. Hi, Rich.
Hi, Sheila. Good to
Thanks
see
for
you.
being here.
Of course.
So, I always like to start with how we know each other, just to give a little introduction to that, and also who you are. So, maybe you can share a little bit about who you are, what you do in the world, and also how we know each other.
The first time that I met Shulin was I had gone to the Bikram yoga across the river, and I attended a class there. I took Bikram a couple times, and was interested in attending those classes, and just from seeing her at class and interested in furthering myself in some kind of energetic way that I heard about Reiki years ago through a friend of mine that I was on a retreat with. And it just kind of, I was hit by it because they had placed their hands on me. And I had felt a sense of like relaxation and almost like a tension release. And I was like, wow, there's something to this. And boy, I feel like I want to explore this avenue a little bit more. And but I thought about it and thought about it, and but just had never taken action. And then I had a dialogue with Shulin, and I was like, oh, this is a perfect opportunity. Oh,
Yeah, so we met at the yoga studio, and I remember you used to come in a little bit early, and
mm,
we would just kind of naturally start talking about things of a spiritual nature, right? And we
yes.
had some great conversations, very expansive, talking about the spiritual path. And yeah, somehow we landed on the subject of Reiki and your interest in that. And I think then what happened? I must have, oh, you know what? I think it was when I led my introduction to Reiki workshop at the yoga studio. That must have been when we started working together because you came to one of those. And then I think scheduled a private session with me. And it kind of went on from there.
I'm like, how do I get more of this?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm always seeking. And
Mm.
then I get a little taste, a little glimpse of something, and then I'm like, oh, okay, more. Let me explore more into this.
So say a little bit more about that. What is it that you feel you get a taste or a glimpse of when you experience that energy?
I feel like it's kind of like this resource that I can tap into, um, that gives that it's like a power, of course, greater than myself, and that I can utilize in like life and life circumstances to kind of ground me, and to give me like a clearer picture of what's going on, and it helps, with me because, sometimes I'm up in my head a little bit, and it kind of clears away some of that static that's up there.
Yeah.
And, I get a relaxing feeling. Um, I'm more open to signs along the way. And, and usually if I follow those signs, my life unfolds a little bit more in a state of calmness
Hmm. Right.
and
Yeah.
towards the direction of my higher self versus different labels.
Hmm. Hmm. So speaking of that, because I'm just wondering if we can ground this a little bit. Can you share what do you do in the world, and what are some examples of in your day-to-day life how this energy has helped you ground or helped you clear that static?
Right now, I work for my family, a family business, and it helps me with stressful situations um, to clear that stuff away, to clear that stagnant energy
Mm,
that kind of like sits in my body. That's why I love yoga too. You know, it just kind of sits there, and I can clear that energy out and allow new energy to flow through me, which is kind of a renewing. It's a renewing of my soul. It's a renewing of my body, and it's helped me out when I put this into practice. But it's like anything else, you know. It's like we have to practice at this. We have to practice at this Reiki and bringing the energy in and setting time, you know, for ourselves and allowing it to work through us. You know, I feel like if you have an open heart, that this Reiki energy can work in anyone's life.
hmm Yeah, I agree with that. And so when we started working together, what was going on for you at the time that motivated you to say come to the workshop and then book a private session with me? And then of course we did more work together, which we'll talk about, but what was going on for you that motivated you to seek that kind of support out?
At the time, I guess it was just a calling. It was just a calling that, you know, it was like, why not? You know, what do you have to lose from this? You know, I've heard so many good things about it, and I just like inquired about it a little bit, you know, and I'm like, okay, let's take a step out of the normal and go towards something, you know, which I'm always a spiritual seeker and seeking, you know. So I'm like, oh, okay. So, and I've seen a couple other people, you know, that I know, and I talked to them about it, and they're like, oh, go for it. Yeah, go ahead. So that kind of motivated me. You know, it was just like, all right, let's do this. You know, it was something I've been thinking about. It's something that's been coming across my path for years and years and years, but like with hesitation, like I hesitate on stuff, and I'm just like, nah, I don't know. But then I'm like, okay, let's do it. You know, let's take that first step. And then before you know it, I was like going through like a couple different series with you know, and
Mm-hmm.
it's
Mm-hmm.
something that I utilize to this day. You know, I utilize quite often.
Yeah.
Anytime that I do set that time aside and put this into practice. There's no doubt I feel the benefits of it.
Mm-hmm. So let's jump ahead just a little bit, and then I want to get a sense from you of what that whole experience was like. So you came to the introductory workshop,
Mhm.
and that was something I offered just to give people a flavor of Reiki, because I think, like you said, it's talked about quite a lot. And you really don't know what it is or what it's like until you have an experience of it, but sometimes it can feel a little intimidating to do a full session. Um, and jump right into that. So I thought, the workshop at the time was such a great introduction. I think we had maybe 8 people. It was still very intimate. Um, and we did a full healing. I talked about what Reiki is, how it can be used, which it really can, it's infinite how it can be used and how it can be applied. But just gave a little history and context for Reiki. And then we went into a full session. And then you booked a private session after that. And then I can't remember. I think it may have only been like 1 or 2 Reiki sessions that you did with me. Then maybe fast forward some number of months, it could have even been a year. I remember I started to offer Reiki initiation. And so when I reached out to you to offer that to you, it was like seconds I heard back from you and you said yes. So what was it why was that such a hands down yes for you? Like it seemed like there was no hesitation because you got back to me so quickly.
Because I can just feel it. I can feel the energy. You know, I can tap into it. You can feel it, and that's something that once you feel that energy, you know, it's something that you're always like searching for or you're calling into play just because it takes you out of yourself and you can tap into this resource that can help your life flow
Mm, that's
in a
beautiful.
way that normally it wouldn't,
Mm,
on your own. So that's why I jumped on it right away. I was like,
mhm,
oh, okay. All right,
mhm.
yeah. Why not go for this? I want that flow. I want that
Mm,
flow in my life. I don't want,
yes.
a stagnant pool. That's
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
and then the little signs along the way, two little signposts along the way, just whether it was animals, whether it was certain like life situations that that popped up and just was signaling me like I was going on the right path.
That's beautiful. Yeah, and initially it was only going to be level one Reiki initiation. And when we met and we did the initiation, it became very clear that we really needed to have some support and follow up and integration for you. And I also realized for myself the reason why I love to do that and why we ended up actually building it into a 4-month apprenticeship, which I love that it was through our working together that actually came into being. And what I realized for myself actually in teaching Reiki and in initiating people is it's very important to me. And that's why I also work in, I do one-to-one sessions, but I also really love working in a mentorship or coaching capacity because I know for myself, a single one-off session, you can have some insights, ahas, but then to have that support to actually integrate it and have someone that you can meet with, follow up with, and share your experience and have that affirmed or ask questions to me, that has always been the way for me that I've been able to integrate something lasting in my life. And I've also seen that for others. And I know I've spoken with too many people who, they might say something like, oh, you know what? I did take Reiki. I am initiated, but I don't use it. Oh, I forgot. Oh,
Yeah.
I don't do it. And what I realize, it's so important to have community, even if it's a single mentor working one to one or a group or whatever that is, that just helps, like you said, seeing those signs to affirm that you're on the right path, to affirm that this is still something that is so useful and beneficial for your life, and just to have that support. So we had the initial level one Reiki initiation. It was so beautiful, so transforming for you. We followed up and did some integration, and then we said, well, hey, do you want to go all the way? Levels 2, 3, and master, and do this 4-month process. And you said yes to that. And what for you, again, why was it that yes for you? Because that was quite a commitment, and you completed the entire
It was quite a
apprenticeship.
commitment. I'm still like in awe that I followed through with that and made that commitment. It was like I think just because I got a taste of like Reiki, what was involved with Reiki one, and I'm like, okay, let me go a little bit more, just as far as like leveling up with it and being able to tap into, use some more of the symbols and to utilize some more of the energy that was available. To kind of amplify it, I guess, in a way. And so I didn't hesitate at all. I'm like, once you start to get a little bit of a taste of something like that, it's like, oh, okay, I want more. Okay, like, how do I, tap into a little bit more?
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it just kind of kept me going, and I love the mentorship too, where it was prolonged like that because it created more of a habit for me to be like, oh, okay, I have to meet with Shulin this week, and oh, okay, I have a little homework assignment here, all right, I better do this homework assignment. I better practice some of this stuff before I meet up with her. And it just kind of it was a commitment that, and I was held accountable because I was meeting up with you on a weekly basis, and then reaching out to you also on top of that. So it really it solidified it, instead of just like a weekend course or, you know, um, and I was able to make it a habit, in a way. It's like, with my meditation practice, the same thing, it's like I do it on a daily basis, and it becomes almost like I don't walk out the door in the morning without meditating. Like I don't feel right,
Yeah.
So I wanted to make this, kind of a same routine or resource that I could tap into. Whenever I'm having trouble, like today, I was like, okay, let me draw the Reiki, the Reiki symbols, and then, and tap it. When I feel a little uncomfortable, I do the same thing. I'm just like, okay, can I? All right, this is what I can do. I remember I was driving home in a snowstorm,
Hmm.
and it was pretty bad from my sister's house. And I was like, oh no, this, snowing really bad. I have this 3 hour drive, and I'm like, and I could barely see the road. And I'm like, and I wasn't sure if the car was going to make it or not. And I just drew the Reiki symbols, repeated, held on to the wheel. And I was just like, okay, all right,
Hmm.
I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna get home. That's just like just a little example of how,
Hmm.
you can bring it in.
Yeah, and it's not that little either. I mean,
I
you've shared a
know.
few pretty significant examples with me about how you've been able to integrate Reiki and utilize it really in a split second process of decision making when you were faced with a potential challenge. And you really shifted that, which is so beautiful because it's a shift within you and also a shift around you. Are you open to sharing the other example? Because I know you shared one from work while we were working together.
Yeah. With
I think it was in the convenience store.
oh yeah. Um with dealing with people,
Hmm.
basically, and dealing with you know, people in general, just to kind of ground you
Yeah.
so you can interact with them and not react. That's a big thing for me, not be a reactor, but just being
Yeah.
a sense of presence. Even when, I like even to sit into a room, and it's almost like a sense of calmness you can bring into a room. You can bring the energy in, and some people, I feel like you can send it out to others. I did that with my dad. My dad had a stroke. He was in the hospital,
Mhm.
and I just, just kind of like the energy work. And there's so much to it. I mean, they use it in hospitals now.
Yeah.
I think in rehabs and detoxes and because it has that healing property.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so simple. And that's also why I even came into Reiki in the first place. I met people who practiced it. I wasn't familiar with it, but I felt a difference in their presence. I
Mm.
used to describe it as they just seem nice and loving.
Oh, I felt like that
And
when I seen you at the studio. I was like, hold on a second, something's going on with her.
oh, thank you. Yeah. And
Yeah,
so thank you. I really appreciate that
sure.
because in my earlier years, when I would come into contact with people who I found out practice Reiki, it was like, oh, wow, I started to make this connection. And I really felt like I aspired to being that presence.
Yeah,
And as I learned about it more and I had my own profound experiences, I'm like, okay, I need to get into this. So very similar actually to you. And everything you described, I really appreciate you sharing about your experience through our mentorship because that was exactly why I designed it the way I did. was in order to support people actually solidify it in their lives and incorporate and integrate it so it becomes very natural. It can it you know can it's very simple, actually, the initiation process, the learning, and because it's new, it's different, it might seem like it takes a little work or effort to study some of the elements about it. The bottom line is, wow, you just put your hands on, you call in the Reiki, and you let it flow. Like you said at the beginning, is allowing the Reiki to flow through us and do its work because it has a natural intelligence. And yeah, I'm so glad. And so, just out of curiosity, what is there anything else you can share? Like, what was it like? Because we did do one-to-one, so as opposed to a group. And what I loved about that also actually was we were able to customize it to your life. So we had a lesson plan. I would send you, every time we were going to meet, I would send you a little lesson in advance and what your preparation was, which was pretty simple, but still, adding extra things into your
Yeah,
life.
of course.
But there were some times where you came and you just, either gave me a heads up, messaged me before our session, or when you got there, we checked in, how are things going? And we were able to shift if we needed to. I think one time you came and said, "Hey, can I just have a Reiki session so I can experience this?" And I'm really feeling like I'm needing support, And the
Yeah,
beautiful thing about how we were structured, because I think we had, in every month we had one sort of 2 hour initiation and training, a second 2 hour just kind of follow-up integration, and then a third kind of single hour just kind of placeholder session where you could ask questions, and all of it was changeable if we needed to. So how was working with me in that kind of container? What was that like for you?
I like that because it gave me some flexibility, and there was a day where I walked in and I'm like, I just can't do this today, I just need some support. And just to be able to say that, and then you facilitate some support for me, it was a relief. It was a relief, it was like, wow, okay. And then it just actually just confirmed. It was just like, oh, okay, yeah, this stuff works. Reiki does work, so I appreciated that flexibility.
Yeah. And then, like you said, we were in communication between the sessions. You were able to ask questions.
The customizing, then I would reach out, about different experiences that I went through, and you would share some of your experiences that you went through, and it was like just like, okay, yeah, all right, we're in this together, and I've been through this stuff, and it was nice to have, like you said, a community, somebody to reach out to, somebody to show you the way, and
Yeah.
yeah, that was very comforting.
Good. I'm really glad. And like we said, you made it all the way through. You were, we had to shift around some things sometimes, and that was totally fine because the
Yeah,
container supported that kind of flexibility and fluidity with, enough structure where we had a plan in place, but we knew we could adjust it if we needed to. Um, and you made it all the way to master level Reiki. Um, so fast forward now, you talked about you do still make time to dedicate to your Reiki practice. How has your life shifted now after our work together and going through that apprenticeship? How do you use Reiki? What do you feel is different for you now in your life compared to before we worked together?
I definitely call the Reiki in when I'm going through life and life's challenges, and I feel like, I can't handle things. And and it's helped. It's helped me out tremendously when I call in, when I initiate it. Um, but there's times where I forget. I forget, and I'm like, oh, okay. But then there's times where I'm like in crisis mode almost, and I'm like, okay, what can I do here? And then it's helped me navigate certain situations. And even when I think like it's not going a certain way that I feel like it should be going, and it'll work out in the end,
Mm.
um, then I know it's like the Reiki wisdom versus my wisdom and intuition and direction. So it's like it's a guiding force or light that's there. It's taking me in the right direction, even though I might want to steer off in another direction. Um, and no matter what direction I go end up in, I guess it's gonna be all right. You
Mm.
know, that's the comforting thing about it. Um, yeah, so I had nothing but good things to say about the
Mm.
experience.
That's so great, Rich, and I'm so glad it's made such a positive difference in your life. And I think that's very normal. We do forget the tools that we have, but then we remember. And sometimes it takes, more intense situations for us to remember. But it is such great practice to remember that we have this anytime we need it for guidance, for support, for healing. And I love that you brought in the wisdom of Reiki, because yes, it's a healing energy, and healing can take many forms. And sometimes it does take the form of wisdom, direction, um, guidance that really shows us that it's greater than what we could conceive of on our own. And so we know that we have that support. We always have access to it. So I'm just so glad and grateful that, you've gone through all this work for you, and that it's still there for you and you still utilize it, and it can take years to use it more and more. And I think you even said this earlier. It's like we just have to use it, like building a muscle. We talked about that even in our mentorship together. It's like going to the gym and building up that habit. And then sometimes you don't want to go to the gym. You don't feel like it, or you take a break for a number of months and then you're like, okay, I got to get back. And, Reiki, everyone has their own path with it. And I know, I've been very active with it and then sometimes not as active, but then I always come back to it because thankfully I have community like you, like my mentors, my other colleagues. Um, and by sharing each other's stories, we also get very inspired and remember to use what we have.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's exactly
Yeah.
what I was thinking. You know, that's the path that I've gone down too, in many other situations in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what would you say to someone who's feeling drawn to this type of work, but maybe hesitant or unsure?
I would say go for it. You know, I mean, once you start, it's a calling, I feel like, if you're thinking about it,
Mm.
um, it's crossed your mind, start out with level one, and then go from there. But, I'm pretty certain like once you start, I mean, that was my experience once I started, on one and just tapped into that energy. And that resource that was there, it was like, okay, now what? Now,
Hmm.
now what's the next level that I can go to?
Yeah.
And yeah, yeah, just I don't know if there's a fear behind, starting it for some, or if it's like a self-doubt, or if it's I don't know, like there could be so many other things that, skepticism about it, but an open mind. I have an open mind and an open heart.
Mm.
I think that's the key, an open mind and an open heart, and then
Serendipity Nene.
all right.
Is that Siri?
No, yeah, no, that was yeah, that was Siri. It's an open mind and an open heart, and just and a feeling, it's like a feeling, an energy that flows through you, and you'll know if it's calling you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's always for highest good.
I like that.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right, that's good.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Rich. Your presence and your words are always a gift. So I really appreciate your sharing your experience. And then if you're watching this and you're feeling the pull, I do offer soul guidance sessions, which can include Reiki, astrology, Akashic healing, and also mentorships. And you can learn more or reach out through my website at shulinaurora.com. Thanks again, Rich.